Hello, my name is Thomas. Welcome to British Culture, Albion Never Dies. This episode is all about the UK's new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and it's all about your questions, my answers. I'll be having a look at the context, what led us to this point where we have a new Prime Minister, the third in a year. And again, going through the questions that you sent me, especially on Instagram, where I just opened up to any questions. And as the events of the last month, the last 6 weeks, were rolling, I was happy to answer in the moment there. I didn't want to do a podcast episode at the time because events were moving so quickly. Now things seem to have settled for a moment. I thought now was time to take a breath, look back and see what's been going on, and also do a brief biography again of Rishi Sunak. I say again because I did an episode on the new Prime Minister not long ago. In September I did an episode called Who is Liz Truss, a brief biography of the UK's new Prime Minister, but already we have a new one. As I say, I've been going through events. One of them was called The Next Prime Minister. That was back in July, and I released that after Boris Johnson resigned. I feel he had a pretty high profile around the world, so his resignation was something worthy of addressing, and that led to such a large number of messages in reply that I really felt it was important to follow up on those messages. So then I did the episode British Politics, Your Questions, My Answers, again in July. So in September, it was all about Liz Truss. Of course, I covered the death of Queen Elizabeth II, the accession of King Charles III. And then our politics took a very, very surprising year. As I say, 3 prime ministers, 2 monarchs in 1 year. It seemed to be speeding up. I was wondering if events were really speeding up, if maybe I was slowing down. And so I kind of sat back and started to reflect on this. In the 1980s, of course, we had one prime minister, Margaret Thatcher, who became Prime Minister in leading her party successfully in a general election, and she became Prime Minister and was Prime Minister throughout the whole decade. Of course, stepping down in 1990, so the 90s we had kind of a few months of Thatcher. Then we had John Major, who was the Conservative Party choice. Again, I've explained this in a few podcasts. The way we choose a Prime Minister is whoever leads the largest party in Westminster. So there's 650 members of Parliament, and whoever leads the largest parliamentary party is the first among equals. So John Major came to power through the party selection, and then of course he did lead the Conservative Party to a general election victory in 92 and then lost in 97 to Blair. So then we changed parties, changed Prime Minister. So in the 90s, as I say, Thatcher, who just spent a few months really of the 90s as Prime Minister, then John Major for 7 years, and then Blair, of course, carried on through to the 2000s, ultimately stepped down 2007, and we had Gordon Brown as the Labour Party leader starting 2007. Again, that was a party choice. He left office, of course, in 2010 for Cameron, and then Cameron led until 2016. Then we start to get to the shorter duration prime ministers. So as I say, throughout the 1980s we had 1, 1990s 3, but rarely just 2. Early 2000s, just 2, Blair and Brown. 2010s, well, as I say, Brown, Cameron. Then we had May, who again was selected through the parliamentary party process, 2016 to 19, then Johnson, Bojo, as he is known to many, Boris Johnson, who was Prime Minister from 23rd of July 2019 until the 5th of September 2022. What an eventful premiership that was. And then we have Liz Truss, and then Rishi Sunak. So, as I say, I wondered, is it really speeding up? Yes, it is. If ever you're interested in British politics, I'd always recommend the magazine Private Eye, edited by Ian Hislop. There's a great number crunching section in issue number 1584, which was just counting the days for the Chancellors of the Exchequer. So days Nadeem Zahawi served as Chancellor of the Exchequer in Boris Johnson's outgoing government in 2022, 63. Days Kwasi Kwarteng served as Chancellor of the Exchequer in Liz Truss's incoming government 2022, 38. days, Ian Macleod served as Chancellor of the Exchequer in Ted Heath's government with at least the excuse of dying at 30. And then they couldn't resist adding 1 day. Joseph Goebbels served as Chancellor of Germany after Hitler's suicide. Not the exact same thing, of course, because the Chancellor in the UK is, of course, what's known as the Finance Minister in many other countries. But nonetheless, we have been dealing with exceptionally short time frames for our current serving Prime Ministers and indeed Chancellors. So how long was Liz Truss Prime Minister, and why? Well, Liz Truss was Prime Minister from the 5th of September 2022 until the 24th of October 2022. So it is a matter of days. Now, a few people online have been giving different numbers of days. I thought I'd start go through the calendar counting. So Wikipedia, for example, says that she was Prime Minister for 50 days. That includes the date of the appointment as 1. In other words, if she's appointed as Prime Minister, say 4 o'clock in the afternoon, then 4 o'clock to midnight, that's 1 day. But if you say it's the 24 hours has to elapse, then she was Prime Minister for 49 calendar days. If you only include, say, Monday to Friday and don't count the first again, that's 35 working days. But of course that's, first of all, assumes a Prime Minister just as Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, which might not be the case. But also ignores the fact that the United Kingdom entered into a 10-day period of national mourning following the death of Queen Elizabeth II in Balmoral on Thursday, the 8th of September. So we had those 10 days of national mourning starting on the midnight, so midnight to 9th, to the 18th of September. So no government business was conducted. Again, if you believe that, the Prime Minister absolutely refused to give any policy word to anybody. But then we can say, okay, so 5th September to 24th of October minus the 10 days of mourning gives 39 working days. If you're only counting Monday to Friday, minus the 6 days, 33 days. Again, it's possible to get 44, 45 and various other answers. So lots of journalists and lots of sites that you rapidly find through Google have actually been given very different numbers of days. So if it comes up in a future pub quiz, beware. This may catch you out, whether it's 49, 50, 44 or 45, possibly 33. So let me know. How many days do you personally count it as? I'm very interested to hear how many days do you think actually count as days working as Prime Minister, and do you count that first day after the appointment? Anyway, I just thought I'd go through that one because it's an interesting one. I do listen to Radio 4's podcast, Behind the Stats, where they actually crunch the numbers that are in the news and ask questions beyond. So how many days was she Prime Minister? You can have fun with that counting. Anyway, let's quote Timothy Dalton's James Bond, Do You Want to Know Why? And of course, it's the economy, stupid. Or it seems to be. So she, of course, announced the mini-budget, which was not so mini after all, and had a remarkable effect on the market, bringing the pound so low it was almost equal to the dollar. But there seems to have been a lack of consultation with colleagues before this monumental shift in policy. If you're Prime Minister, you are leading, a party, you are leading your equals, and they have to support you. And if they don't support you, they can scupper pretty well any policy. You're first among equals, not a president. And it seemed to be Liz Truss was very popular with the party membership. So that's, say, 100,000 people who have paid their dues to the Conservative Party, who are members, who are contributing, who are activists. She was very, very popular with them, or at least more popular than Rishi Sunak, who she stood against for that party vote. But she was not so popular with the parliamentary party, so the few hundred members of Parliament who are Conservative Party members. She didn't win with them, and they certainly didn't seem to support her, giving considerable aggravation, chaos, some people described it, over a bill on fracking. I must admit there's deep ins and outs of this, but it seems to be the Conservative Party promised to do one thing on a manifesto, she was against it, and there seems to be a major bill on that where there was a lot of argy-bargy going along, a lot of bad blood created. And she also had her Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, who had to resign over a minor scandal, but that seemed to give the impression of a chaos. and the markets just reacted very, very badly to her economic policy. She ultimately resigned, saying, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. It's very rarely been a Prime Minister who's had so much go wrong so quickly. So as the events were live, it's very easy now to sit back and look back on all the different factors, but as it was running, I was asking people in my on my Instagram, do you have any questions, with pictures of the politicians there to guide it at least towards the politics. So I asked these on 20th of October, a day of resignation, carrying on throughout the week, and I gave my immediate responses, so I'll read out my responses then and also give my follow-up for what I think now. And the first question, I think, came from Mr. Izzy Reddy, and he said, what now? Elections, are you surprised? To which my answer was, I am surprised. I was very, very surprised Liz Truss resigned. It wasn't a few days before that she was saying, I am a fighter, not a quitter. And of course that's become a meme format since, of, I'm a fighter, not a quitter. Me at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to turn my life around. I'm a fighter, not a quitter. And me when I wake up in the morning, I resign. Anyway, I said at the time, perhaps not an election yet. First, the Conservative Party will choose a new leader. My thinking there was, if the Conservative Party had a leader who wanted a brand new direction, a fresh slate, then perhaps there would be an election, as it would require a new mandate. But if they were going to carry on with the previous election manifesto and give some consistency and continuity, then we probably would not. But it was all up in the air. We didn't know who it would be. But genuinely, yes, I was, in the first instance, very, very surprised at her resignation. The next question was, how close are we to snap elections? I said my response at the time was, conceivably we won't have one for a while. Prime Ministers are chosen through a parliamentary process, and the Parliament will likely last a while longer. How long is a while? Well, again, those factors going through my mind at the time were on the Conservative Party, but also events. There was a lot of anticipation of this winter, us having some economic problems, also due to energy prices, and that can affect a government considerably. It gives them their returns, give them room to manoeuvre. So it could be in the spring. That was my thinking at the time. Okay, somebody asked me, who's your money on for the new Conservative leader, and will there be a general election? Again, that was the major question from a lot of people at the time, and I gave a two-part answer. One, seems very much in the hands of the 357 Conservative members of Parliament right now, and two, perhaps a general election in 2023, but a week is a long time in politics. I think that's proven to be correct, that a week or 2 weeks is a very long time in politics, and that we are in pretty well a new era. Things have settled down, so perhaps a general election next year, but we'll see. And I said very much in the hands of the Conservative members of Parliament. Of course, normally, the Conservative Party, they would open up, if we need a new leader, they would open up to MPs, basically saying, who wants it, how many people back you, and it could be a dozen people back one MP, so a dozen MPs back one MP to be leader, and then if it's 5 people, then you have a vote, one person drops out, you have another vote, one person drops out, again another vote, one person drops out, you're left with 2, and then those 2 are given to the party membership. This was a very, very unusual process for this year, the second one this year, because the 1922 committee, who determined the rules of the game for the Conservative Party, they said that what they'd do is they'd have those votes if candidates got 100 MPs backing them. So that limits the number already to simply 3, and they said for the final 2 they'd have a subsequent advisory vote if there were still 2 standing. That's exceptional. That's never happened before. They would essentially vote as an advice to the party membership for who the party should vote for. That's very, very unusual. As it happens, we only ended up with one person getting over 100 backers, so it didn't even go out to the party membership. It was simply decided between the Conservative members of Parliament. Very, very unusual. Now, with regards to a general election, that's obviously when all 650 seats go up for election at the same time. Must happen every 5 years. Someone asked, in the UK, can you call a general election at any time? And the answer is broadly yes, a government can. Parliamentary terms have a maximum limit of 5 years, but elections can be called before then. And a number of kind of chats going back and forth about, does that favour the incumbent, which is really interesting. Maybe it depends on who the incumbent is. So, for example, Theresa May called a snap general election in 2017. That did not favour her. She lost seats. It was generally perceived that she was kind of being tactical, calling an election when she was at her most popular, and the opposition party was at its least popular. Lots of people felt that she was being tactical, and so people from her own party simply didn't go out because they disapproved. So that was interesting. She could choose the timing, but she chose poorly. And of course in 1997, John Major had kind of delayed election, delayed, really until it was too late. So you can call one too early and lose, or have a reduced majority, or you could call one too late and lose entirely. And for Gordon Brown, when he became Prime Minister, lots of people said, would you call a general election? And he kind of delayed his announcement for quite a long time, eventually deciding not to. And that seemed to lose him his subsequent election as well. So really, in some ways, it raises the stakes for the government of the day to call it at the right time, because certainly most of the ones in my recollection, if it's been the timing, it's very rarely been clever timing. It's normally they've paid a price for the wrong timing. Just my thoughts. Somebody did message me, bring back Boris, which was, I replied, not a question, but a very popular sentiment in some quarters, and I was corrected. Apparently it was meant as a question, but it was late and the person mistyped. But it was interesting. Lots of people said, well, this hasn't worked, bring back the old guy. And there's still a bit of a run. Boris Johnson did cut short a holiday, I believe in the Caribbean, to come back to the UK to consider whether he'd run again, and ultimately chose not to. Got a very specific question. Will the Health Secretary also quit? She needs to, okay? And I replied, the new PM will select a new cabinet, so there'll be many changes at the top. One person sent me a flurry of questions which I've all put together and responded together. They asked, will there be new surprises? And I said, always room for more surprises. Someone said, can Boris return? I said, bounce back Boris has not been ruled out yet. That was the 21st of October. He ruled himself out later. And how was the public's reaction and yours? After that, after the initial gosh, I said, more surprised at the speed of events rather than the events themselves. Okay, one person who follows British politics from abroad was saying, is there a risk of the Tory coalition collapsing? Are they still relying on the DUP for support? The Democratic Unionist Party is a party in Northern Ireland, and in 2019, before then, the Conservative Party had kind of been relying on their votes to help push through major policy, but the 2019 election gave the Conservative Party a majority, a solid majority. But would the Conservative Party collapse? It kind of depends on who gets selected. Obviously, some candidates are more divisive than others. If you have a very divisive leader, of course, there's always the danger of some people leaving. But I didn't give a final answer to that because we knew we were going to get the leader by that Friday. I thought one interesting thing was, who is Penny Mordaunt? She was one of the front runners in the recent two leadership elections, and she's been a minister since 2014, held a series of junior positions before becoming Defence Minister in 2019, and she's since gone on to hold a number of other roles. One interesting one is, why did Liz Truss want to abolish the monarchy but claim she's fit for Her Past Majesty's government? Because she did make an anti-monarchy speech, but when she was 19. And of course, at the time of being Prime Minister, she was 47. Yes, I was wondering, could I find record of any of my political views at 19 and compare them to when I reach 47? I wonder what changes there would be. Thankfully, I don't think there is a record. Somebody said, how is this going to end? Because I can't imagine the PM for the Conservatives will survive. But I said, new PM by the end of the week, all things depend on that. I realise it's a bit of a non-answer from me, but genuinely all was unknown. You seem to be living in unprecedented times. Although maybe I'll take a detour from just the question and answer, go to Private Eye, because everyone's been describing the situation as unprecedented. But a reader of Private Eye, Colin Bayliss, wrote in and pointed out to the magazine in 2018, In 1812, how I misread that, in 1812, the national debt was ballooning, war was stalking Europe, the Tory party was struggling to stay together, and its previous leader, Spencer Perceval, had just lost his job at short notice, being assassinated. The newly appointed Prime Minister, Lord Liverpool, was the Prince Regent's fifth choice for the post. At 42, was very young for the job, and was widely expected not to last long. How did that pan out? He stayed in office for just shy of 15 years. So as I say, I'm trying not to use the word unprecedented. With the amount of history the UK has, it's always dangerous to use that word, this is unprecedented, because sooner or later someone who knows his history inside out is going to correct you. I received a final question before we knew who the Prime Minister would be. Someone said, do you want the next Prime Minister to keep Jeremy Hunt as Chancellor? And I said, totally depends on who the next Prime Minister is. There's many possible candidates, and their success greatly depends on their relationship with the Prime Minister. And that goes both ways. The Prime Minister's success often greatly depends on his relationship with his Chancellor, as I think we saw with the Tony Blair and Gordon Brown government, that when they worked closely together, they seemed to be successful. And as they slowly grew apart, the rumour was they didn't actually speak in the final year of government. They simply sent notes towards each other and sent intermediaries, but wouldn't generally work together. Not mano a mano anyway, not as closely as they had. But that was not good. So yeah, for the government, the Prime Minister and the Chancellor must work together. 24th of October, Rishi Sunak. Okay, so again I opened up on Instagram to any questions at all. One chap who obviously has been following British news said, Rishi Sunak's wife with a tax issue, how is that? And I responded, according to the BBC, Rishi Sunak's wife, Akshata Murthy, said in April that she will pay UK taxes on her overseas income. This has been a bit of a running story, as of course he's in charge of taxation and finance, and his wife was paying, some people felt, not quite enough tax. Private Eye again to the rescue with some solid information. If Rishi Sunak's dodgy on questions of ending non-domiciled tax status as part of efforts to fill the fiscal hole or anything to go by, his wife, Akshata Murthy, is set to continue enjoying the status for a while yet. Although earlier this year she ceased to claim the benefits of the status, she did not relinquish it, and could still invoke it to save nine-figure sums on any inheritance or capital gains tax arising on her 700 million or so of overseas assets. She would lose her non-dom status if she were to commit permanently to Britain as opposed to India, which would lead her to acquiring a domicile of choice in the UK and thereby forfeit entitlement to tax breaks on overseas income. Deep attachment to Great Britain and huge tax breaks aren't always easy to reconcile. As I say, this is a story that may well run and run and run. One person asked me, will it be a problem that he is so rich, seen by the general public? And I replied, so far 356 people have had their say. We shall see. Of course, he is a member of Parliament, so he has won his seat. However, he was put immediately into, by the Conservative Party, put into one of their safest seats in the country. He has been Conservative for a very, very, very long time, and so is perceived by many to be not the most competitive seat. Somebody asked me what are the betting odds for how long he will last. I feel the earlier bit from Private Eye, comparing him to Prince Regent's fifth choice, might come in there. But no one dared oppose for now, is the answer. Somebody asked me, if Rishi Sunak had to resign, beyond Mordaunt and Boris, is there anyone else running with a chance? And I said, not in the short term, but a week is a long time in politics. Somebody else just asked me for my personal opinion, your hopes and thoughts on him. And I said, I think everyone is just hoping he'll be good at his job. We all just want the government to succeed and do well. I did comment he's fairly untested electorally. He didn't win this in a contest. He became Prime Minister because nobody else got 100 backers. The last time there was a competitive, leadership election, he lost it. And as I say, he was put into a safe seat as soon as he went into the Commons. So we shall see how he does in a competitive election. Somebody had asked me, will he get into bed with Boris? Sunak worked very, very closely with Boris Johnson, but most Prime Ministers appoint a new team, not involving previous Prime Ministers. That would be exceptional. John Major didn't have Margaret Thatcher in any serious role, and Gordon Brown didn't have Tony Blair in any serious role, in fact largely had a new cabinet. So most Prime Ministers rarely appoint their own new team. It's an opportunity for all the juniors, actually, a change of Prime Minister. For those who become Prime Minister, they're normally in senior positions beforehand, but the junior ministers do change around considerably. Somebody messaged me and said he does have great style, that Rishi Sunak. Tailor-made suits, I believe. I had a quick look online. Yeah, Henry Herbert suits, apparently. 3,500 Great British pounds for each. During the... when he was running against Liz Truss, people were commenting on his £2,500 suits. So spending a bit extra now. One person asked, Larry the cat is sticking around, right? Thank you very much. Yes, Larry the cat, the Downing Street cat, is more permanent than a Prime Minister. And there have been a few cartoons of the cat at the Prime Minister's residence saying, oh, another stray I have to take in. Goodness knows, the last one was a nightmare. Yes, the cat will stay at number 10 Downing Street. I asked, on Instagram, any questions at all, and one person did ask me, what's your next sartorial purchase? What's on your wish list? So, you ask the question, I reply, probably a tie. I wear one most days. And on my wish list, of course, Tumblr and Asa is always on the wish list. So, we have the context. Rishi Sunak becoming Prime Minister in quite the tumultuous time. We have all the questions and answers. So very briefly, okay, who is Prime Minister? Rishi Sunak, born May 12, 1980, British politician and financier who became leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in October 2022, previously served as Chancellor of the Exchequer 2020 to 2022. Okay, yes, he's a young Prime Minister, born 1980, perhaps our youngest for around 200 years. And of course born into a family with immigrant roots. His grandparents had emigrated from the Punjab, northwest India, to East Africa, where his mother and father were born in Tanzania and Kenya, respectively. They met and married after their families migrated in the 60s to Southampton in southern England. His father was a GP for the NHS, and if you want to hear my views on the National Health Service, listen to the episode. N is for NHS, and his mother was a pharmacist who owned and operated a small pharmacy for which Sunak, the eldest of their 3 children, would eventually keep the books. He's drawn the comparisons between him and his experience working in a family business and that of Margaret Thatcher, the daughter of a grocer. A result, according to Encyclopaedia Britannica, a result of his parents' sacrifices and saving to fund his education, Sunak was able to attend Winchester College, an exclusive private school that has produced no fewer than 6 Chancellors of the Exchequer. He became head boy at Winchester. He became the editor of the school's newspaper, and during summer vacations he waited tables at a Southampton Indian restaurant. He went on to study philosophy, politics and economics at Lincoln College, Oxford. There he was president of the Oxford Trading and Investment Society. And that is something that's been in all biographies of him, wherever you look. His experience, for example, he was a Fulbright scholar, got an MBA at Stanford University. His experience as a hedge fund manager in quite a range of companies is his CV. So he's worked on a number of hedge funds, and of course it was I believe in the US that he met his wife, whose family became rather well off through her father founding the technology giant Infosys. Her net worth is estimated at £1 billion, or about 1.2 billion US dollars. Time of recording, of course, exchange rates are varying. So, yep, Rishi Sunak never fought and won a competitive election, youngest Prime Minister for 200 years, and become Prime Minister at a very testing and trying time. So, as I say, we all wish the best to him, because, of course, a successful Prime Minister gives us a successful country, and we all very much hope for that. I see that was a very brief bio, but I felt it was very important to give the context to how he arrived and to answer those questions that I was given as fully as possible. Do we live in unprecedented times? Well, there's some who would say there's nothing new under the sun, but it does come around in very new, novel and interesting ways. So, that was my latest episode on British politics. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully I won't need to cover this topic again for a good long time, but for now, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.